We don't talk about uni. No, no, no. Well, actually, we do talk about uni when it's positive, but negative, you might want to put a lid on that. You might not want to do that. We're going to talk about that within the fan community today because there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of conversations around Disney versus Universal, and we really want to focus today on that fan element of those conversations. I think it's very, very interesting. Up next on this episode of OG 55. Welcome aboard to another episode of OG 55. Like I say, we're talking about the fandom. The fandom's kind of response to the Disney versus Universal thing. There is a lot. We're going to go over some tweets from the other day. I think it's very, very interesting. So we'll discuss it. But before we do that, I want to introduce my fantastic colleague, my buddy, my partner in crime, Mr. Citrus George, host of Citrus Corner here on the channel. George, welcome back, my fellow Italiano.
Thank you very much. Forget about it.
Forget about it. Where
Glad
can
to
they
be
find you on
back.
social media, sir?
Absolutely. You can find me on X at Disney George. You can also find me on the podcast, A Walk with Walt. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Here we go. You're all set, buddy. You're all set. So let's dive right in. So there was a conversation yesterday on X, formerly known as Twitter, which is so funny that the name is X now, right? Which is shorter, but everyone says X, formerly known as Twitter. So now it's actually longer than it used to
Longer.
be.
Yeah.
So stupid. It's so stupid. But let's go ahead and dive right into this conversation because I think this is really interesting, actually. Now, I do want to say before we get started, I actually reached out to Captain John D privately and asked him if we can do this video because I do consider John D a good friend. We both do. George and I both consider John D a friend. A lot of the people in this thread are friends of ours. But there's disagreement, and you have disagreements with friends, and there's no disrespect. But we're going to kind of go through it and kind of break this all down. But I do want to say that we're all friends here, and we're not trying to attack anybody or disrespect anybody. This is purely just fans talking about fan stuff. And I'm going to go over a tweet from John and the subsequent responses. We're going to break them all down. Okay, so the Tiki Bat tweeted the other day the bridge, the infamous San Francisco Bridge, which is, hey, look, let's be honest, okay? There's elements of this bridge that construction wise, the craftsmanship could have been better. Absolutely not good show, bad show all around. And the Tiki is pointing that out. Captain John D quote retweets it saying, rough, whatever happened to quote fit and finish. Lulu continues with, some people will blindly defend it, but that is shoddy work and isn't up to the Disney standard, at least the old standard. Now, here's the thing, Lulu, before we kind of dive into this even further, the irony of this tweet, George, is that the responses are all people sort of blindly defending Universal, which is kind of funny. I don't know. I see a lot more of that than I do of the blind defense of Disney in most cases. But anyway, I digress. Then my response here is it's bad show, period. But when I and others brought up the shoddy work at Nintendo World, the Dented Hills, we were told we were being ridiculous and quote unquote haters. Both of these companies can and should do better. What do you think about that, George? When you see something like this that obviously does not look good, and then you see the San Francisco Bridge, which you haven't seen in person yet, but you've seen on pictures, images on social media, what have you. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with me, disagree with me? Are these two companies, should we hold them both accountable? Or are a lot of people correct where we should only hold Disney accountable and Universal should get a pass because they're number two?
No, absolutely not. I think all these companies, and it just doesn't stop with Disney and Universal. I say for, SeaWorld, for Busch Gardens, for Knott's Berry Farm. I think all of these companies and that run these theme parks and amusement parks should be held that if you are going to have your guests pay a specific premium price, and if you want something to look a certain way, that it should be done correctly. And to just have the target only on Disney. Now, when I say that, folks, both OG and I are very critical when it comes to Disney when something is wrong or incorrect.
Well, look at our Destination D video just the other day. I mean,
Exactly.
we were going after Daddy Josh. I mean, a lot of that video, most of that video was very critical of the Walt Disney Company. We were not shilling or pixie dusting for anybody.
Right, absolutely. But when something arises where Disney does something good or positive, we give them praise and we say so. It's the same thing with Universal. If they do something well, we'll give them praise for it. But if they don't, we're not going to sugarcoat and hide it under the rug just because it's Universal and Disney is supposed to have this higher end standard. And I think that that's where it stems from. I think for so many years Disney has always held themselves to a higher standard, and these other themed companies such as Universal always took the back seat. They were always playing second fiddle to Disney. So it's almost like these people have this in their mind. It's like, oh, well, if Disney has that upper hand and they have the title of being number one, well, then guess what? Then there's no excuse. But you know what? Even if you're number two, even if you're number three, it doesn't matter. You know, you should still want to produce great products, great projects, no matter what. You shouldn't just have to be number one to then have to pinpoint the negativity opposite the other ones that come at 2, 3, or 4.
Here's my issue with the Disney versus Universal thing. Is all the time, for years now, all I've heard from the fan community, not all fans obviously, but a good portion of fans, is that Disney has lost their touch and Universal is now meeting or even exceeding Disney quality. So when it comes to that, when people want to use that rhetoric to slam the mouse, that's fine, okay? But then when you criticize Universal and you say, well, hold on a minute, wait a minute, look at those hills, look at the craftsmanship on those dented hills, look how shoddy that work is. Then they come back with, whoa, Disney's top dog. I mean, surely you can't hold Universal to the same standard. What do you mean we can't? All you guys do is talk about how wonderful Universal is and how it's on the same level or better than Disney. If you're going to believe that, then we can absolutely hold them accountable for this shit, and we absolutely should. So
exactly.
It's ridiculous. That's just my opinion. Now, and so I think you have to pick a lane. You either have to, if you're going to say that Universal is on par with Disney, then you have to follow through with that and hold them to a high standard when they fuck up, right?
Exactly. And I also want to address that notion too that you just said about that people are saying, you know, Universal is kind of one-upping Disney and Disney is kind of losing their touch. Now, and I had mentioned this in the DMs, mind you. Now, Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, as I said, that was a religious experience for me. That was all around theming. That was phenomenal. It was great. Again, I'm giving Universal credit. I am praising them for that. So, but when you then tie, okay, I'm probably going to get dinged for this, but I don't care. But when you take rides or attractions like the Velocicoaster and Hagrid's, yes, they do have theme around the coaster. But at the end of the day, they're coasters. Now, Hagrid's is a little bit more themed than Velocicoaster, in my opinion. They have some of the audio animatronics and everything.
Oh, very themed, yeah.
But when you compare Hagrid's to the Forbidden Journey, there's still no comparison. Hagrid's is a great ride, but as far as an overall captivated theme, Forbidden Journey takes the number one spot over that. So more so recently, even if Universal, as far as like structure wise, if they say this is better than this, when they're saying Disney is losing their touch, I cannot still foresee Disney losing their touch. They just opened Toontown. Toontown looks great. Right. They just built Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway from scratch with the El Capitan Theater and inside Remarkable Queue. So I don't understand where if people are still saying that Disney has lost their touch with certain things where, yeah, certain things may happen, but it's going to happen for all, even at Universal. If we go to Universal right now, I'm for sure would find something just like the San Francisco Bridge, but it's just not being talked about. That's
Well,
the
yeah,
difference.
the hills, what I just showed you right here, the
Exactly.
hills. I mean, look like total shit. And then you talk about quality of attractions. You have this Minion Con or Villain Con thing over there in Orlando, which is getting terrible reviews, and that's not a good attraction. So these things are very with these both of these companies, they kind of ebb and flow. You're going to have these home runs, and you're going to have the misses sometimes. It's just normal. So let's go ahead and let's go down this. Go ahead.
Before you move on, I have a question for you because I'm not 100% sure, and I just want to confirm.
Sure.
With the construction with Disney and Universal, are these actual Disney cast members and a Universal team members, or are these third-party construction companies?
That's a good question, man. I believe they are third-party construction companies, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, because we also have to take that in consideration too, because they're saying, "Oh, Disney this, Disney that," but if they're hiring third-party construction companies, it should be on them to produce and do well, so something can actually stick and it not fall apart within a week.
Yeah, that's definitely an element. I'm not really familiar with the ins and outs of that, but I can see where you're going with that, with the third party thing. Absolutely. Now, John D here continues, said, yes, indeed, that was bad as well regarding the hills. But that was news. But that news was 9 months ago. San Francisco was fresh. There was a particular concern with the same type of issue at Epic Universe due to the speed at which it's going up, and the same criticism is warranted, if so, due to premium pricing. Okay, so here's the thing with this, and I replied with this. I said 9 months, and it still has not been fixed. By the way, we can mock Disney for the construction happening at Toontown again right now, but at least they are addressing problems. When will Universal fix those hills? Now, what I'm talking about there is Disney right now is digging up all the concrete around the fountain. They are fixing problems that exist in Toontown. Look, they shit the bed on a lot of that stuff. There were problems with Toontown, and now they're going in and they're fixing those problems. Now, we can, like fans do, they go in there and they mock Disney. Oh my God, this land just opened, and look, they already have construction walls up again. We can mock them all day long, and it shouldn't have happened in the first place. I 100% agree, but you know what? At least they're fixing them. 9 months. When are the hills going to get fixed, Universal? When are they going to get fixed? That's the thing. At least Disney's addressing this stuff, and I guarantee you, I'll say it right now, and maybe I'll eat crow. I bet you that San Francisco Bridge gets fixed long before those hills do. I'll say it right now. I guarantee it. So John D here says, I don't know and I don't care. I'm not particularly interested in Universal or comparing the two companies. I wish them the best and they should fix their issues, but I mainly have an interest in Disney as a lifelong fan, generational customer, and a shareholder, valid and appropriate. Okay, now here's the issue. Again, respectfully, John D, the problem I have with this is that not just you, I'm not just saying just you. I don't want to make it sound like I'm picking on John. It's more of an overall kind of feeling I have with this kind of conversation with Disney and Universal. And this happens a lot. When it comes to praising Universal, so if it's going to be Epic Universe, for example, right? And talking about how amazing Epic Universe is going to be, then it seems like it's okay to compare and contrast amongst fans. We can talk about Epic Universe and what's Disney World doing? Why aren't they responding? And man, they're getting Epic Universe and we're getting Journey of Water and yada, yada, yada. We get all those comparisons, right? At that point in time, everyone seems interested in Universal and it seems perfectly fine to compare. But the minute we bring up anything negative with Universal and comparing and contrasting, then suddenly it's like I feel like I'm met with a lot of like, well, I don't care. Well, we hold Universal to we hold Universal to a lower standard than Disney. So it seems all this stuff is sort of orchestrated and kind of built around this idea of like, okay, if you're going to talk about Universal and you're going to compare it to the mouse, it's okay to do that as long as you're using Universal in a positive light and kind of shitting on Disney. But the minute that comparison turns on Universal and it's no longer beneficial to Universal, then it's like, well, hold on. I don't care about Universal. Just let's stop talking about Universal. Everyone talks about Epic Universe in a positive light, and that's fine. Everyone compares Universal, Epic Universe to Disney World. That's fine. But the minute you bring up something negative, well, I don't care about that. You know, I just feel like everyone cares about it until it's negative, and then suddenly no one wants to talk about it.
But we also have to take into consideration with Epic Universe. Yes, it is moving at a rapid pace. You know, I'll give Universal that, but people are already labeling Epic Universe as okay. There's going to be no issues. There's going to be no problems with it. We don't know that until it opens. We don't
Right.
know when the final finished product what it's going to look like. It may look janky. It may look all bang up. It may look like where nothing is feasible with the other. We don't know what it's physically going to look like. All we're looking at is the skeletal structure of the construction work with the aerial views and what have you. We really don't know. I'm for sure it's going to look beautiful. I'm for sure it's going to look great, but we can't just hurry up and say, "Oh, Universal's Epic Universe doesn't look like this compared to what's going on with Toontown or the San Francisco Bridge." We don't know that.
Well,
When
and you
when
don't.
when it's built, then we can give our criticism as to what it's going to look like.
And that's what was another point I was going to get to. When it's built, when you actually go to the park, yeah, because I don't believe a lot of people in this chat have not been to San Francisco yet. I've been twice, and I can tell you right now, it's a different experience in person. I can tell you that right now. I texted George when I was in San Francisco like a week or two ago, and I told him how much grander that bridge feels in person. It's actually a really cool little area. Now, look, I'm not going to sit here and tell my audience like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is on par with Pandora. I'm not going to sit here and like, totally, blow smoke. No, it's not. It's a modest retheme.
And it
But
was
I think
never meant to be. It
no, it was
never
never
meant to be on that caliber with Pandora or Cars Land or what have you.
Right. And look, it's easy to like go on Twitter and have zoom in shots of construction issues, right? And go, oh, the whole thing sucks. And look, I'll admit, with Super Nintendo World, I was one of the people on Twitter very critical of the shoddy craftsmanship in that land. But you know what? When I actually visited the land, my impression of the land was much, much better than it was when I saw all that crap on Twitter. I am able to go on camera, and I did, and say, hey, you know what? I was wrong. Because actually the land is really cool. Actually, Mario Kart was better than I expected. So I think a lot of people that are kind of shitting on San Francisco should go visit it, because it's actually pretty cool land. They got great area music, which is like this techno kind of Japanese pop techno kind of vibe. And the bridge is way bigger in person than it feels more grand than it does in pictures. It's actually a cool little area. And it's easy to get caught up in like, oh man, this bolt was out of place. And when you zoom in on it with the camera, everything looks like crap. When you actually visit it with the ambiance and everything, just like Super Nintendo World, it's actually a pretty decent little area. So
and you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually want to say something about that as
sure.
well. When people say, I'm a huge Disney fan, or I was a huge Disney fan, and I'm holding them to a higher standard. I put so much money into this, and this is the kind of product we get. If we go back 15, 20, 25, 30 years ago, I'm for sure this stuff was there, but people don't pay attention to it as much as they do now. There was no social media back then. Where there were no digital cameras back then. There were no cameras on phones back then that have like 4K HD quality where you zoom in. No one's focusing on that. But when you have a social media digital platform such as YouTube, X, Instagram, even still Facebook, people are posting these things with the assumption just to get clicks or follows or likes or whatever. And then people take it to heart, and it's like, oh, wow, this is popping up all over the place. This probably looks like shit. Well, guess what? You're taking your own assumption off of somebody else's photos or description or post. As you had mentioned, go and see it for yourself in person.
Right. I'm telling you, San Francisco, I was actually... it exceeded my expectations in person. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say it was an incredible, life-changing experience. It's not. But it's certainly better than what was there before, I can tell you that much. And there's a lot more atmosphere and a lot more energy than there used to be. And the bridge is actually a lot more impressive in person than it looks like in pictures. So, yeah, there's a lot going on here. But Mike here says, I think there lies the difference. Both companies should be called out for bad work. That's what I'm saying, Mike. But Universal gets a pass, and it's annoying to see. I'll gladly call out both Disney and Uni for any junk they try to pass off. And see, this is where I'm at. We call out Disney on this channel. Go check out our Destination D video. I mean, 90% of that video is negative towards Disney and Josh Giamaro. We call Disney out. We call Disney out in a lot of these videos we do. But it's annoying as a fan to sit here and this other company, Universal, is like teacher's pet, and anything they do is like untouchable. I remember when Super Nintendo World opened in February and how fans basically piled on people and says, well, the sight lines and the shoddy craftsmanship, who cares? You're just a nerd. You're just a nerd. You're an overreacting nerd. Just shut up and go away. Didn't even matter. But now suddenly, because it's Disney now, right? Now it's DCA. Now it's Big Mouse Bad. Now suddenly it's a big thing, right? No one gave a shit. A lot of people did not give a shit. We talked about it here, but a lot of people did not give a shit about the shoddy craftsmanship at Nintendo World. And I'm sorry, I'll tell you right now, I don't really care when people say, oh, well, it's Universal, they're not held to the same standard. Then stop saying they're on par with Disney. Stop saying Epic Universe is a Disney quality thing and this is a Disney quality thing. If you're going to make these statements, then they're going to have to be nitpicked like Disney. If you don't want to make those statements, then fine, we can hold them to a lesser standard, but you can't have it both ways. You got to pick a lane.
It's a contradiction.
You got to pick a lane. You got to say, look, this is Disney quality. Okay, then fine. We hold them to Disney standards. If it's not Disney quality, then fine. Then they can get a pass. But most fans say that it is Disney quality. So they're not getting a pass, at least not here on OG55. Maybe some other channels, but not here. So it's wild. But here, our friend Gator Fan 15 says, I think the difference is that the audience on Diz Twitter is largely Disney fans, not really Universal fans. They're less interested and care less about Universal. The passion is Disney, kind of like asking sports fans to be upset about something that happened on a different team. That's true, Gator, and I don't disagree with you. But the issue, again, that I'm constantly coming back to is that, yes, the passion might lie with Disney, but Universal is constantly being brought up in the same circle. I hear about Epic Universe every single day from these same Disney fans. If it's not on the same thing and you don't care about it as much, then stop talking about Epic Universe. You can't, that's just kind of how I see it. I don't know. And then Mike here says, oh, I get it 100%. Universal gets to slide under the radar while Disney is more front and center. But my goodness, if Disney put out anything as bad as that standing shooter thing, this app would implode. And he's referring to the villain con thing we talked about earlier. Now here, Captain John D, he gets a little spicy here. Okay, here he goes. He goes, why do Disney fans give a flying fuck about how Universal is critiqued and if they get to fly under the radar? Makes zero sense to me. It's an emotional reaction and making it personal to yourself, which is weird as fuck. You actually care about a disparity in perspective on Twitter. Now here, John, this is where, okay, I don't understand really kind of what you're saying here because you're kind of making Mike seem like he's weird because he's pointing out something he's noticing amongst fan perspective. But you know what? On the other side of the equation, of the other side of the coin, you have people ranting and railing against pixie dusters and shills all the time. So are those people weird and are those people taking it personal when they're constantly analyzing what the pixie dusters are talking about and how the pixie dusters see the park? I mean, are those people just as emotional and taking it on a personal level?
That's why it should be what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Right.
So if it's weird for Mike, then it's weird for these people that are analyzing the pixie dusters nonstop. And look, for me personally, I don't think either one is weird. I think it's healthy to look inward in our community and our fandom and say, hey, look, let's have a little self-awareness here as to what's going on. I think it's actually healthy. I don't think it makes Mike a weirdo. I don't think he's making it a personal thing. I don't think he's making it a personal thing. I think he notices a double standard and he's mad about it, and rightfully so. A lot of people don't like hypocrisy and double standards. A lot of conservatives have been mad for decades about the double standard in the media. Are they taking it too personal? Are they being weird and emotional? No, they believe that they have been wronged and it's a double standard. So how come Mike can't have an opinion like that? Why can't he feel like, hey, there's a double standard here? I don't think it's right. I think Mike has every right to that. So our friend here, Doc Epcot, which, hey, Doc, we had a few beers with Doc. We love Doc, and he is a friend. Okay, so and all these people are friends. So there's no disrespect here at all. It's just I passionately disagree with a lot of these takes. I really do. Doc here says, exactly, who cares about Universal? If Disney is king of the hill, they should be setting the highest standard, not making Universal look as an equal with shoddy construction and stupid ideas. This whole thing about criticize one, you have to criticize the other, is nonsense. But see, respectfully, Doc, that's not what's happening here, though. Because all day on Twitter, every single day, we hear about how Universal is already beating the mouse. They're doing Epic Universe. They're doing everything right, and Disney is now falling behind. So if we're going to have that rhetoric out there, then we have to hold Universal to the top dog standard. Now, if they're not top dog, if Epic Universe is not the game changer and they're not equal to Disney, then fine. I'm willing to take what you say at face value. That's great then. Okay, Disney is king of the hill. You're absolutely correct. But that's not what I'm hearing on Twitter. I'm hearing Universal right now is creating the better product. So we should be holding them to the higher standard right now because I'm hearing only good things about Universal and Disney is like a has-been. But what do you think, George?
No, I completely agree. As I said, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you have to take both sides of the spectrum for both companies, the good, the bad, and the ugly, for Disney and for Universal. If you're going to talk positive for the positive of Disney, you can talk negative about the negative of Disney, but that also goes to the same retrospect of Universal. Because if you start to cherry pick certain things, depending on which company you're talking about, it then does become a double standard. It does become a contradiction because then you're saying that, okay, if Disney is king of the hill, then there should be no problem with Disney. There should be no gripe about them if they're king of the hill. But as you had pointed out, Universal is topping Disney in quality, so that then makes Universal king of the hill. So if you're going to hold Disney to a high standard, if they're king of the hill, then you should be able to do Universal also. But I think we should just hold all companies to a higher standard, whether they're king of the hill or not. You don't have to always be number one to hold something to a high standard.
Exactly. And I don't know why Mike's opinion of holding both companies accountable is so controversial. I mean, it makes me feel like, is this really about, as fans, is it really about pushing companies for a better product? Or is it more or less just, hey, I'm mad at Disney and I have an axe to grind? Because, I mean, you should.
I think that's what it's more so. Yeah, I think this goes deeper en route to, and I'm going to get a little controversial here myself, but I feel like this goes more deeper en route than it just being a company, but what each company stands for as far as being on the political train or what have you, or making certain decisions within a company that other people may not be comfortable with, which is fine. You're allowed to have your opinion on it, but I feel like they are holding that over the company and putting their own personal viewpoints into that perspective. Rather than just look at the company as a company, you're going to tie it into your own personal beliefs and it being the opposite of what the company is doing.
Right.
So then it then goes into a gray area to say, well, that's why I despise this company. That's why they get under my skin, because they are doing something that is against my moral practices.
Well, and I understand, like, yeah, you're absolutely right. I do believe that is an element here with a lot of fans. I mean, I do, absolutely. And I understand Disney dove into the culture war quite a bit, and a lot of that is their own doing. I understand that. I completely understand that. But as fans, I think we also have to separate some of this stuff. We can't be, if you're angry about the culture war stuff, and I get it. Look, I'm not diminishing anyone's beliefs. If you're angry about it, you have a right to be angry about it on whatever side you're on. But I think as fans too, we also have to understand and see things through a perspective of, like, you got to be able to separate yourself from it sometimes. Mm-hmm. You can't bathe in it all day constantly. Okay, you have to be able to go, okay, look, I don't agree with Bob Iger. He's a lefty. He's this, he's that. But look, you know what? The Moana thing at Epcot looks really beautiful. It's okay to acknowledge that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Everything doesn't have to be seen through those.
Exactly.
cultural-
And I feel like that's where you and I are at. It's like we agree with certain things with the company. We don't agree with stuff with the company. But it's not going to hinder our experiences when we go. If
Right.
something looks great, we're going to say it looks great. If something looks like shit, we're going to say it looks like shit. But it's not because of our personal or political background against the company. We're just saying it looks like shit because it really does look like shit.
Right. There's people I disagree with, like Hollywood stars or what have you, that I don't agree with at all. You know, but I love their work. You know, sometimes you just got to be able to separate, and sometimes people can't. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
it is what it is. But Doc here says, okay, well, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. Mike here says, but why shouldn't fans and people paying a lot of money to go to these parks hold both places to high standards? See, that's exactly what you were saying, George. Universal charges a premium. They do, and they're actually not as cheap as people think.
No, they are not. No, they are not. I'm sorry, folks, because this past summer, I had seen the difference with ticketing and what have you. And yes, Disney is still expensive, but you can't go and say, "Oh, Universal has a cheaper price." I'm sorry, it's not. Over $300 for a 2-day ticket. Sorry.
Well, yeah, and the thing with Universal here too is that you're paying that price. And our good friend Jay Shearer, he said this. I forgot, it was either on a show or in a DM, and I apologize, Jay. I don't remember where you said it, but he made a great point where it's like you pay quite a bit of money for Universal, and Universal. I mean, that's great if you're like that 18 to 35, healthy, and you're into thrill rides. But what about the rest of us? Like, I'm not like a thrill junkie. So for me, Universal, there's a few things for me to do, but for the most part, it's not worth the price tag. There's a lot of the stuff that's not even roller coasters are a little intense, you know, quite a bit actually intense, you know? So if you're a grandma or you're, you know, if your kid is like 5 years old or something, there's not a whole lot for those two demos to do, you know? Or people like me, I'm young, but I don't like being jerked around and thrown around. So what do? You know, what am I going to do? Ride the Seussical all day long? The Dr. Seuss?
Well,
what am I going to do?
I mean, you don't like to be jerked and thrown around for certain things, but there are other things you do.
Yeah, exactly. So Doc here says, because the original post was speaking specifically about Disney, the industry leader, the one who sets the standard, and obviously that standard has waned tremendously. Universal doesn't have to get dragged into conversations when there's constructive criticism against Disney. It's that simple. Here is the thing, Doc. Universal doesn't have to get dragged into conversations, but they get dragged into conversations every time with Epic Universe. Epic Universe is dragged into the conversation every single time, and it's used as a thing to shit on Disney. And that's fine. I don't see anyone complaining about Universal being in the conversation when it comes to Epic Universe is going to give Disney World a run for their money. No one seems to complain about that when it's dragged into the conversation for that. But man, the minute anything gets any time the tone changes and it's a comparison and it's a little negative towards Universal, then suddenly like, well, why is Universal being mentioned? Hey, come on, just forget about it. Hey, Disney's king of the hill. Let's just focus on Disney. It doesn't work like that. If we can talk about Epic Universe in the same sentence and conversation as Walt Disney World in a positive light, but then you know what? Universal can be brought up in a negative light too. That's just the way it is. And if you don't want to talk about it, then don't bring it up in a positive light. But it has to be one or the other. We can't have selective enforcement here where Universal is only allowed to be brought up if it's a positive angle towards Universal. That's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely ridiculous. One more thing I wanted to bring up, which is interesting, and this is from our good friend, Theme Park Wizard. I tell you, man, this is the thing that's crazy. I love all these people. I just had Wizard on my show yesterday. Wizard's a little brother to me. I absolutely love Wizard to death. And John D. I love John D. Gator, everybody. I just disagree respectfully with these opinions, and I wanted to kind of get it out there and kind of address it. You know, it's too much to kind of tweet. I have to kind of do a video on it. But again, all the love to everyone in this thread. I mean, I do love them all, but it's just like, my God, I can't disagree enough. So Theme Park Wizard here says, all the latest hit on Universal. From concept, it was meant to be a high-capacity, people-eating, geared towards children. Y'all Disney people think it's supposed to be some e-ticket. That was never the intention. It's good for what it is and what it was meant to be. Okay, now Wizard is referring to the Villain Con Minion attraction that opened at Universal Orlando. Wizard, I love you, brother, but here's the thing. Just because something is geared towards children doesn't give it a permission to be bad. Okay, you can create a quality, fun attraction geared towards children that's still a good ride. Okay, and I'll give you a couple examples. At Universal, Secret Life of Pets, that's geared towards children too, but you know what? It's a good ride. Okay, the Kung Fu Panda 3D experience over at Universal Hollywood, that theater is absolutely gorgeous. The experience is incredible. It's geared towards children, but you know what? It's still a good attraction. It's still quality. So just because it's, you know, directed at children doesn't mean, well, okay, so who gives a shit about the quality? It can be crap. It's for kids. No, dude, that doesn't work like that. Walt Disney never had that mindset. You know, the Fantasyland dark rides are all good quality. Those are geared towards children.
That only works for Trick cereal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. I don't know. I just don't. I don't believe in that mindset. I don't believe in talking down to children and saying, "Yeah, it's for kids. It can be crap. Don't worry about it." No, Universal should make quality stuff, especially in that Universal Studios park, because that's the park that we've been saying here on OG55 is probably going to take the brunt of all this cannibalization. Epic Universe is probably going to be packed the first year at least because it's the new shiny object. Look at the stuff they're producing over there at the Universal Studios Park in Orlando. This Minion Con thing and all that stuff. You think that this park is not going to see any cannibalization when you have Epic Universe down the road and you have Islands of Adventure next door? Oh, come on. This park is going to be a ghost town. It's going to be absolutely insane. Universal is going to have to give this thing away to get anybody in there with those other two options. It's incredible. Now, have you seen any footage of this Minion Villain Con thing, George? Or have you?
I haven't. It didn't really strike my interest, so I just kind of, left it fall off the waistlines. But
the waistlines McCarthy.
Yeah. But I do agree with you in that aspect. I feel like whether it's something geared towards kids or not, it's it still should just be held that if it's if it is something geared towards kids, that if it still should just be a good attraction, whether it's for kids. It shouldn't necessarily have to be geared towards like a older demographic, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, if you're making it for kids, you still got to have this. You have to have the same level of quality and the same level of attention and care that you would for an adult ride. Like, I don't think that like excuses them to make a bad ride. I mean, I wouldn't say the same with Disney. Like, if Disney wants to build a Disney Junior dark ride at DCA, for example, it still has to be up to par with what we expect from Disney. Like, just because it's Disney Junior doesn't mean like, oh, okay, well, they can phone it in and it's half-assed. Don't worry, it's for kids. They're not gonna know. No, it doesn't work like that. Come on, So I don't know, man. A lot of thoughts here. This has been a thing of mine for a long time. I've been really passionate about this double standard in the community. I don't hate Universal, you guys. I know a lot of people think, oh, OG, man, he hates Universal. I got a Universal annual pass. I've gone like 8 times since I got my pass just a few months ago. I fucking love Universal. I love going. What I hate is a double standard in the fan community. That's what I hate. Exactly. I just wish there was more of an honest conversation around these parks. I don't want you to show for Disney. We don't show for Disney, and I don't want anyone to show for Universal. Let's just be honest with ourselves about these parks. Let's hold them both to a high standard and demand a better product and stop giving Universal a pass. People act like it's like punching down, right? Like, oh, it's Universal, like we're punching down. This is not like, Aunt Maggie's, cookie shop on Ventura Boulevard, okay? This is Comcast. They're one of the biggest multinational corporations on the planet, okay? They have pocketbooks. They have deep pockets, okay? They can do better. Stop apologizing for them. Stop apologizing for them. They can do better, just like Disney can do better. And I'll say it right now. This bridge stuff shouldn't be happening. Disney's better than this. Disney is absolutely better than this. I hope if anyone from Disney is watching, they get this fixed right away. And you know what? If anyone from Universal is watching, fix those goddamn hills. It's been 9 months, as John D said. So fix them, okay? Fix them. But anyway, George,
Yes.
any closing thoughts on Disney Universal conversation?
No, I think you mic dropped it right there.
There we go. Hey, you know what?
You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
You know, in true Italian fashion, that's the bad guy. No,
Of
I
course.
just want fairness. That's all I want. And I don't like this double standard.
Yeah.
You know, we can talk about Universal when it's good, but man, if it's bad, hey man.
That's
Yeah.
basically what it boils down to, and I think a lot of people don't even recognize that they do it. It just became part of their normal everyday habit. It's Universal positive, can't say negative. Disney
Yeah.
negative, can't say positive.
It's crazy, man. I'm just so tired of it. I just want to have an honest conversation about these parks, and you just can't. You just can't.
Yeah.
You know, it blows my mind. But George, we have to get ready for another show we're doing today about Ahsoka episode 5. So if you could let everybody, actually, I'm actually trying. Hold on one sec. Give me one sec, dude. There we go.
There we go.
My roadcaster froze. No, we're gonna do a big show with Jay Shear in a little bit. We're gonna break down episode 5 of Ahsoka. It's gonna be epic. That was a phenomenal episode. We're gonna talk about it. Me and this guy, hosted by the phenomenal, amazing Mr. Jay Shear. We're gonna break everything down, and that should be up either tonight, maybe tomorrow. We'll see. But George, if you let everybody home know where they can find you on social media, and we'll close it out.
Absolutely. You can find me on X at Disney George. You could also find me on the podcast, A Walk with Walt. And you'll find me here on my home base on Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. And a big shout out and thanks to everyone who actually was part of that conversation that allowed us to be able to come on and make this video happen. Captain John D., Mike, Wizard, Gator, everyone that was part of the conversation. We just asked, just keep everything civil, be able to have a conversation, whether you agree with someone or not, and it should just be all around what you could talk positive and or negative for both aspects of Disney and Universal.
Let's just have a conversation. I think it's healthy to do so, and I don't think we should ever shut anyone down. Look, I disagree. Okay, I'll give you an example. I disagree with Eric July, Ripa, a lot. Okay, this guy, whenever he talks about Disney, I'm like, oh my God. Like, I disagree with him like wholeheartedly on just about everything he says about Disney. You know what though? I love watching his content and I respect him. And I think Eric July is one of the smartest guys in this nerd space. I do. I really enjoy his insight, despite disagreeing with him pretty much all the time. So I never condone like trying to silence anybody just because they disagree or whatever. I think that everyone should have a voice. So, hey, you know what, Mike? If you want to complain about the double standard with Universal and Disney, have at it, Mike. Hey, if someone else wants to complain about the pixie dusters and the shills, have at it, dude. Let's have a conversation, Eric July talks about what he wants to talk about. OG55 talks about what we want to talk about, and it's a good thing. I think conversation is healthy. We should never try to shut things down and try to silence people and say, hey, you're a weirdo or whatever if you talk about that. Nah, dude. We're all, first of all, nerds. We're passionate about stuff, and that passion comes through sometimes. So, but again, as George said, thank you to everybody. John D., Gator, Doc, and Theme Park Wizard. And if I'm missing anybody, Mike, I think that's it. I think it's everybody.
I think so.
All right. Well, everybody, have a fantastic day. We'll see you on the next episode. Have a wonderful, wonderful